After 2 years of losing his eyes while fighting with Sasuke and Boruto, he now lost one of his hands while trying to attack Jura. Even after receiving this suffering, he also experienced deep heartache in the past after Aida rejected his love. So what kind of suffering will he feel next? The weakest and worst kazekage in history. After, in the Shipuden era, he was defeated by Deidara, now he fails to protect his son from the threat of Shinju. Even with the revelation that Amado hid Kawaki's limits so that he could have a maximum level of defense and regeneration, Amado suspects that the information known by Boruto is from kashin koji. And for the umpteenth time, Boruto protects all of Kawaki's lies in front of the Konoha elders. Boruto doesn't want to tell the truth and prefers to bear the burden of everything, rather than having to make things worse if Konoha knows what the truth is about Kawaki and Boruto's switched identities. Oh yeah, today is my day. Official Chapter 14 review, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. By the way, I don't know the reason why so many viewers don't subscribe, but if you don't want to subscribe, that's fine, but I hope you like it. Thanks guys. We know in the previous chapter, Ryu was resurrected by the Shinju. And in Chapter 15, Ryu as the cover, a story begins with a flashback before Shinki became a Shinju. Jura, who at first in Chapter 13 wanted to kill Boruto after he was dying from getting severe injuries, Mamushi suddenly appeared and gave information if Matsuri had returned, and so Jura decided to return to the Shinju dimension. But this was not without reason. Matsuri had gotten information that Boruto had allies, and most likely this had to do with Kashin Koji knowing that Matsuri had found out the base where Kashin Koji was hiding. And so with that, this is most likely the big reason why the Tsunagakure Kazekage is protecting his village from strangers. But unfortunately, Gaara is completely helpless against that Shinju. But guys, if we analyze the first scene that shows Shinki and the others trapped by Gaara's sand, who is actually the Matsuri's opponent. Did Gaara fight the Matsuri first, and then Shinki and the others came to help them, or vice versa? What do you think, guys? But because Gaara is currently dying, Shinki asks Gaara to release the sand seal so that he can join the fight with him. But because Matsuri originally only intended to follow Boruto's accomplice, she gave Gaara mercy to treat his wound immediately. If no action is taken, Gaara will die. Even seeing her opponent dying, Matsuri gives mercy and lets them go if the Gaara does not resist. But since Gaara was adamant about protecting Shinki and the others from dying in this place, he was willing to sacrifice his life to rid them of the Shinju threat. But when the Sumeaka was ready to attack Gaara, Shinki broke the sand seal and freed his hand. And thanks to the iron sand, Shinki just in time used Fuinjutsu to seal Gaara with iron sand before Tsumeaka bit his father. But unfortunately, when Shinki managed to protect his father from the Tsumeika's attack, he didn't realize that there was another Tsumeika attacking him from his blind spot. And because of that, Shinki became a tree. And since Shinki had previously freed himself as well as Yodo and Araya, he asked them to run away from this place immediately and give this information to Kankuro. With the condition that had become a tree, Shinki maintained his hand seal so that the barrier protecting his father would not be destroyed. And since the Matsuri could not break the seal, she became interested in Shinki's abilities and even intended to take him as a teammate. And maybe this is a big reason why Matsuri in Chapter 13 was so excited after getting Tagadama from Shinki's soul. And on the other hand, Kankuro, who had gotten information about Shinki and Gaara, immediately gave the information to Shikamaru to get help from Konoha. And although Gaara was still alive and escaped death, Gaara could not be saved and got out of the seal. Because basically, to undo the Fuinjutsu barrier can only be released by the Shinki himself. And because of that, Shikamaru confirmed to Kankuro whether there had been anyone with the same chakra signature as Shinki around since then. But since Kankuro stated that so far there was no Shinki chakra signature around, it means that it is certain that after Shinki became Shinju, he has not come to the place where Shinki and Gaara were sealed. But one thing is certain, Shikamaru will conduct an investigation for this matter and will share it as soon as possible for a solution. And as Gaara's big sister, Kankuro asked Shikamaru not to tell Tamari about this matter. But from this incident, Sarada was so worried that what happened to Shinki would have a wider impact in the future. And that means the potential in the future for some shinobi to become trees could be very large. And because of that, they have to consider the possibility. But certainly for now, Shikamaru asked Sarada to tell if Boruto contacts them, because that way Shikamaru will get more intel from him. And it turns out, without them realizing, if from the beginning the toad Kashin Koji has been there to spy on them. And although Kashin Koji does not know what happened to Boruto, who has been interrogated, but one thing is certain, Kashin Koji has known everything from the beginning because of his Jippo ability. And on the other hand, Shinki, who had awakened and turned into Shinju, was quite surprised by the name given by Jura. But in essence, Jura gave the name not without reason, because the narrator mentioned that Ryu can mean a grain of sand. But at the same time, Ryu asked them to be quiet for a while, and from his shoulder he pulled out a tail formed from iron sand to enter the black cube right under his feet. From an eye that seemed to be peering, Ryu pulled it out of that place, and it turned out to be Code. But since Jura was their leader, he told Ryu that he was not a problem and ordered Ryu to release him. Code, who had been in the cube since the beginning, was spying on them to find out what they were doing. But because they did not do what Code wanted to devour Otsutsuki, Jura reasoned that, for that matter, he chose to do what was his priority first. And the thing that became Jura's priority to delay devouring the Otsutsuki was because of his priority of wanting to kill Boruto and capture Himawari. Even with that, Jura as the leader had decided that Kawaki alone is sufficient as fodder. We know that they planned to devour all the Otsutsuki, including Boruto and Kawaki, but because in Chapter 12, Boruto had learned intel about the Togedama, and including how to free Sasuke, then Jura had decided to kill Boruto, but felt that this was different from Code's way of thinking. He thought that only he could decide who to kill, and as a monster, they should only concentrate on the Otsutsuki they had devoured. Even Code also reminded them that as the one who would become the new Otsutsuki who inherited Ishiki's will, then he would be the one to eat the chakra fruit. And since Jura had previously searched for detailed information about what the chakra fruit was, he assumed that what would happen if Shinju ate the fruit. But from this statement, I'm a little curious about what would happen to them. Would there be a high probability that they would also have the same chance to evolve as Otsutsuki? So far, I think that Jura's question is not an ordinary question. There could be a high probability that he ate the fruit if there was a desire to become stronger and evolve, right? So what do you think? And because of that question, Code felt that Jura was trying to confront him. And because he felt that he was disrespected, Code tried to attack him. But when the hand went through Jura's robe, he used the same technique to attack Boruto. And as a result, Code's hand was cut off, making him scream in pain. But in the end, because the situation and conditions were far from allowing Code to fight back, Jura made an offer to Code to kill Boruto and his accomplices, and in exchange, Jura would promise to give him the chakra fruit. But if I look at the part where Code covers his stump hand with claw marks, I'm very sympathetic to him. Even as the creator of the Shinju, Code's ability and power are very far compared to them. Even as the owner of the bug soul who is always with him, Mamushi mocked him in front of them. Even if Code is mocked by him, he definitely won't be able to fight him. And in conclusion, Code accepted the offer to kill Boruto in order to get what Jura promised. But maybe you won't notice Hidari at this moment. After his awakening, he was completely quiet with no dialogue. I still suspected and slightly believed that he would try to take over his consciousness as Sasuke one day. I don't know, I can be this sure for no reason. If you still remember Itachi being controlled by Kabuto, it will probably be the same with Hidari. Even if not now, surely in the future Hidari is one of the Shinju who managed to resist. Oh yeah. And after Code left the place, Jura confirmed that who would be his target and who he would devour. And sure enough, it was Gaara as his father who would be his target and as the person he would devour. But so far, I'm still very curious. We know that everyone bitten by a Tsumeka will turn into a tree. So if the one who bites or devours it is a Shinju, what will happen to the victim? Will it be the same as Shinki, or will it be different? It's very interesting, isn't it? But the interesting fact is, since the seal can only be released by Shinki alone, does this mean Gaara will be easily devoured by him? Most likely, Konoha or Tsunagakure will send some shinobi to guard him. And if this does not happen, it means it can be confirmed in Chapter 16. Gaara will really be devoured by Ryu. But before that, we saw Boruto again, who was sitting casually on the Hokage statue. But if we look at Boruto's words to Kawaki, who came to see him and said why he didn't attack him, it seems likely that it was Boruto who asked Kawaki to come to see him. Even because in the previous interrogation, Boruto had not told Konoha the truth. Kawaki could not understand Boruto's mind for not telling the truth. But since Boruto considered that it would be pointless because it would not make them believe it and would even create divisions and confusion, Boruto chose to avoid it and not say it. And that means Boruto for the umpteenth time protected Kawaki from Konoha. Because even if he has to sacrifice himself for Kawaki, Boruto's priority is to keep Konoha stable. Big W and big respect to young lord Boruto Uzumaki. Besides that, because in chapter 9, Kawaki and Boruto fought to make their karma resonate until Boruto ran away from Kawaki, he thought that with that Boruto still couldn't control his karma. But because of that too, Boruto explained what really happened to the Momoshiki inside his body. About 2 years ago, when he was with Sasuke fighting the code, Boruto used his karma for the first time after he left the village. And in that moment, Boruto also felt something familiar when Momoshiki possessed him. A feeling where he stopped being himself as if he was dying and only his consciousness remained. And since then, Boruto decided to never use his karma again. But in essence, even though the past 3 years Momoshiki has only been silent, but it's possible that activating karma will cause him to emerge. And with that question, Kawaki felt that Boruto's condition was now even worse. But when talking about Momoshiki, Boruto turned the conversation to the divine tree. And in essence, Boruto asks Kawaki to help him defeat Shinju, especially Jura. And if Shinju has gone from this world, Boruto is ready to be killed at any time if he loses control and runs amok. But from all that, Kawaki must become strong at all costs. Because if Kawaki cooperates with Boruto, it will make it difficult for him to fight Shinju. Especially Boruto, if at any time he loses control and goes on a rampage. Because with the current conditions alone, Kawaki has not been able to defeat Boruto. Especially if Boruto is controlled by Momoshiki. And so Boruto advised him to train and become strong. Although Boruto originally suggested him to train with Naruto, but Boruto thought that it was unrealistic. Too much time and risk would be at stake. And so with that, Boruto, who already knew everything about Kawaki through Jippo Kashin Koji, he offered to ask Kawaki to have Amado remove his power limiter. Because as the one who had to bring back his daughter's life, Amado adjusted Kawaki's defense and regeneration abilities to the maximum level. And in exchange, Kawaki did not have good enough abilities to fight, but had good enough defense and regeneration abilities. And all because Amado did not want Kawaki to die. I apologize, guys. In yesterday's leak, I said it would be a problem if Boruto died, but in fact, it would be a problem if Kawaki died. Mistranslation, guys. And Amado, who was monitoring their conversation at the time, was quite confused by the information known by Boruto. Even Amado was suspicious of the toad that was previously destroyed by Kawaki. Amado assumed it would be very hard to believe if Koji was still alive. But if he was still alive, Amado really didn't understand what the purpose was. But in the end, as a person whose goal from the beginning was to annihilate the Otsutsuki, including their part, Kawaki declared that he now accepted Boruto's offer to work together to defeat and annihilate Shinju from this world. At the end, the narrator adds a sentence: to deal with the Divine Tree people. The two finally team up. Then what will Konoha do to help Tsunagakure? So what do you think, guys? Will this be the beginning of Mitsuki, who will help Shinki and defeat Ryu? Nothing is impossible if this will happen. Especially since Konoha will soon send shinobi to help Shinki and Gaara. And at the same time, Ryu will come to remove the seal and devour Gaara. I'm really waiting for the moment when Mitsuki and Ryu fight again. So that's the review of Chapter 15, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. As Boruto fans, I ask you to provide responses, theories, or others as a form of Boruto community response. Thanks for those of you who have liked and subs. I'm Nim. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye, Dadabayo.